Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing well. So in this video, we're going to see how we can configure Redux Toolkit and we can just make a to-do list and we're going to use latest version of React Native and latest version of Redux Toolkit and just a to-do list. I'm not going to go deep inside that. I guess you already know normal Redux. So first let's begin with creating a React Native project. So let me open my terminal. Let me create a React Native project and let me name it React Redux. Okay, so the project is created now. So let's go inside the project. Okay, now we need to install React Redux. So Redux Toolkit first. Open the first link and click on Get Started. And here, if you scroll down, you will find Redux Toolkit, and you also need to use React Redux. So what React Redux does is that it's create the bridge between your React application and the Redux Toolkit. So going to install both of them. Yeah, that's all we need to use Redux in our React Native application. Okay, it's installed. Now let's open our project inside VS Code. Okay, now let's try to run the application once. We're going to run on Android first. It run on Android. Okay, so there is some issue with my Java version. It says it's required Java 16. Sorry, it's required Java 17, this Gradle plugin. But have Java 15. Okay, so after upgrading my Java version to 17, now I can run the application. Let me rerun it again. Here we can see the application is running. Because the metro server is not running. Let me hit reload. Yeah, so our application is up and running. Let me also show you the version that I'm using right now. So React version is 18.2.0, React Native is 0.723.0, and Redux Toolkit 2.0.1, React Redux is 9.0.2. So now let's start with configuring the Redux. So if we go back to documentation, we can click on this quick start. Then you can see first we need to create a store. So I'm going to just copy paste this. Let me put this side by side. Anyway, we don't need this at the moment. Let's keep it here. So I'm going to create our app folder. Inside that we will have a Redux folder, and then we will create a file called store.js. So we have the store. We don't have the reducer yet. Now if we scroll down, we can see there is the way we can connect our store to the application. So there are two ways to do that. One, you can simply add the provider. inside the index.js file, or you can use your app.js. I personally prefer index.js file, because in app.js file you're going to do a lot of things here. There's no need to add this thing, no need to add Redux inside app.js, simply because we can add this here as well. So we need to wrap our app with provider, and need to import the provider from React Redux. And instead of passing the app here, we need to pass it here and pass the Redux app inside instead of app. Now we have the provider, but we don't have the store yet. So we need to assign store, and we need to import the store from the store file we created. So this is all you need to do to add the store. But if we need to do more stuff to configure the store and the reducer. I'm just going to do that now. So we have the store. Now we need to create something called slice. So in normal Redux we have something called action and reducer, and slice is the combination of both of that. So let me just copy this, and we will create another folder inside the Redux folder called reducer. And inside that reducer folder, we will have something called, let's begin with the counter slice. I mean, the example we have in the documentation. Okay, so now we have counter slice. Now we need to create another file. Let's say root reducer. So what root reducer will do? So what root reducer will do is to combine the reducer we have to a single piece and pass that to store. So you can simply say export default and combine reducer. Need to name our reducer. Let's say counter, and need to import the counter slice. I mean this counter slice here. I'm coming back to this reducer and all of the stuff here. Just installing the root reducer here. So we have root reducer implemented. We have root reducer now. So we need to pass this root reducer inside our store. So in the store, we have something called reducer inside the configure store function. So in the reducer itself, we need to pass root reducer. Okay. Now, if we coming back to the counter slice, we can see this is not similar with the normal Redux. So what we have here at the moment, so we have something called initial state, which is the initial state of this slice, like the counter slice. You can have multiple slice, counter slice, user slice, as much slice as you want. You just need to add them in the root reducer to access the state of that slice. Now, initial state, we have an object. You can assign, there is a value, default value. You have a 0. You can, let's say, you can assign user state to a empty object, anything you like. It's just initial state of the counter slice. Now, what we have here is that we have something called create slice from Redux Toolkit itself. So create slice allow you to create action and manage the state in a single place. Previously in common Redux, what we need to do, we need to call an action, and that action will call the reducer to update the state. So we don't need to do that here now. We just need to pass this couple of things to make it work. First is the name of the slice. You can name it anything you want, doesn't matter. You just need to give a name. Then you need to pass the state, which is the initial state we have. And second thing is the reducer. So inside the reducer, we can see increment, decrement, increment by amount. So this is the action we're going to perform, and this is the action name we have here. Below you can find so all the reducer inside the reducer what we mentioned increment, decrement, and increment by amount. It passed down here as a counter slice dot action, and then we're exporting the counter slice reducer. That means this one. So then in that way you can have access to the reducer and also the action as well. So just for the moment, let's keep it as it is and then try to access this state of this counter slice inside a page. So if you go back to app.js, let's remove all of this, and since it's a TypeScript file, just let's change that to JavaScript file and create a empty file. And if we open the application and put it side by side, the reason why we cannot see the text because inside the index.js file we forget to return this. Now you can see the app here. Now what we want to do, we want to access this state of the counter slice. So in Redux Toolkit or in Redux, now if you are using a functional component, you have a thing called use selector. So it's the best way to get the state of the application, but you need to use selector, and you need to import that use selector from React Redux. So this from this function you can directly use the state in the page. So for the moment, just get the state. We just want to see what inside the state. So we are getting the state from use selector, getting the state using the use selector, and going to console the Redux state. And if we open the console log, here you can see inside the Redux state, we are getting the object of the counter slice. So if we have multiple reducer, we will have multiple object. So every slice comes within an object. So from state, since in the root reducer, we name the slice as counter. So we need to access the state of counter slice as counter. And now if we save, then we will have the object of the counter slice. I believe this makes sense. Now, if we want to log the counter slice and we want to log the value, we want to if you want to show the value, then from the counter slice we can extract the value directly, or if you prefer to use this without extracting and storing that in a constant file, you can also do so. You can have this, but I prefer to write less code. We can see the output here. Just make it a little bit bigger. Give it a font size of 25, font weight is bold. Okay, so now we have the value of the counter slice. Now, if we trying to use this counter slice and increase the value, we can simply, we have a predefined action defined and the way the state going to update. So if we use the increment action, it's going to increment by 1. If you use decrement, it's going to be decrement by 1. And increment by amount, you can specify any value from the uh, from here by, you can pass any value to this action and it will update the value of the counter slash by that. Okay, so if we just going to use one action, then we will try to do a to-do list. Let's say title is increment, and inside the on press handle increment function, and I'm going to create the function. Okay, so now to call the action, I believe everyone knows, we just need to import this. We just need to use dispatch. Just name it dispatch and use dispatch and import use dispatch from React Redux, and then we can use the dispatch function and pass the action we need. So here the action we want to pass is increment. We just need to pass the increment. Also need to import the increment. So we can import the increment from this counter slice. Here we have this defined. So this itself a function. If we save now and if we click on increment, it will increment the value by 1. Each time we click, it will increment the value by 1. I believe you got a basic idea how this thing works. Now let's do a to-do list. So we leave the increment, we will leave the counter slice there here as it is, and it's going to copy paste, and we're going to rename it as to-do list slice. Okay, so now instead of counter slice, we call it to-do list slice, and the initial value will be, let's call it list, and it will be an empty array. Okay, we can remove all this, and we need to pass this action. Okay, so the action here comes with two arguments. One is the state, which is the state of this slice, and another one is the action. Action you're going to pass from the application end to this Redux action. So inside the action, you can get the payload. So if you want to, let's instead of increment, just rename it to add to do list and pass this inside the action. So you can call it from there, and let's set the list. I'm going to use state operator. We can use, for the moment, we can simply use a string, and then we will move to object. So now we have a to-do list slice, but we need to add the to-do list slice into the reducer. So let's name it to-do list and import the to-do list slice here. So now we can access the to-do list state from this application. Okay, so let's remove this to-do list We will need the dispatch later. And here we can access the list. So value is undefined. We don't need the value. Let's pass the list here directly. It will still give an error because we don't have the button. So list dot length. Okay. So let's create. Let's do some style to add the to-do list. So import a text input, and then you are also going to need a button. Okay, so the next thing is to so we have a input and we have a button to add. Now next thing is to render. So now we have a basic UI. So now if you click on this add button, then it will add the data inside our Redux. So how we're going to do that? So we're going to do this by calling the function. The function was add to do list, and I will pass the value of the input. If we click on save, and I'm directly using the list from this to do list, which was an array, which is an array, and we're using this array to look through data. If you type something and click on add, then it should pop up here. Yeah, it's how this is how it should work, but you also need to set the input value back to empty string. If you click on it launch, so now it's coming up here. You can also add in the key, and since the index value is 0 by default, so you can plus 1 and it will come up as a numeric system. Yes, so this is how we can add something inside Redux. So what happening here is that we are calling the function. We are once you click on add button, we are calling a function. Inside the function, we are directly calling the Redux by passing on the value, and then that value goes here. So we are calling this add to do list, and in this action we have two arguments, state and action. We already have the state. We're using a spread operator and directly passing this payload inside the state. And then this will return, and we should see the reflect. We should see it here. It's update automatically. You don't need to do a refresh or navigate back to this page. And also, we don't need to, like in normal Redux, we always need to return the state at the end. We don't need to do here, just simply assign back the value to the state, and it should effect immediately. Now we have this where you can add the list. We can also, next thing we're going to do, we're going to try to remove a specific item from here. Now, if you click on this remove, it should remove that specific item. We can also wrap this inside the touchable opacity. We just get the opacity effect, and now we need to call the function to remove. Let's call it remove item. And we can one of the ways to do that is we can simply get the index, and based on the index you can remove it from the Redux. You can also pass the value and remove it based on the value. For them, I will use the value. So we have remove item function. We are getting the value, we're passing the value from here. Now, inside the to-do list slice, we don't have any action to remove the state. All we have is to add another to-do list. So simply copy paste this one. Instead of add, let's say remove to-do list, and passing that to action. And now what you need to do here, we are from the action itself, we are getting the value. So we calling the dispatch, we calling the remove to-do list, and then we're passing a value. We can simply use the filter function dot filter, and we're going to filter it based on action dot payload. So this should simply update the state of the Redux application, remove the specific item from the to-do list as well. Let's try. Adding one. Two. Okay, so now we added three items in the to-do list. So if you want to remove anyone, we can simply click on remove, and it should call the remove to-do list action. And inside the to-do list slice, it should filter out that's the item we clicked for removal. So if you click on the second one, get some sleep. Sorry, we made a mistake. State.filter is not a function, because it's supposed to be state.list. If we save now, data is lost. Let's try again. Okay, so now if we click on the second item, it's automatically been removed. So what happening under the hood is that if we are calling this dispatch function, it is calling this remove to-do list action, and this action filtering out the option we selected. Okay, so this is using index array. Now we want to achieve the same thing using uh, instead of index array, we're going to use array of object. So to directly passing the value, we're going to create an object here. Let's say data, and the value is the input value, and let's assign a key to it. I mean the ID. So how we can get the ID? So we have the list, that's the array from the to-do list, the state, and we can use the length of it. So by default it's 0, and we want to increment that by 1. So it will always generate an unique ID, and in here we need to specify item.value. So if we save, and instead of key we can simply use item.id now. Okay, so now in the state itself we have an object. Let's console the state and see in the log. So now we have an object with an ID and a value. So if we want now we want to remove the value, we can also use the value, but that can be duplicated, but the ID will not. So instead of passing, we can pass the ID, or we can pass the whole object. That's something you need to figure out. So let's pass in the ID here, and inside this action, instead of directly checking on the item because it was the index array, now we need to check based on the ID, and it should work. Okay, so now we are using an array of object, and inside the object we have value and ID. Value can be duplicated, but ID will be unique all the time. And we're trying to remove that item using the ID we are generating here by the time we're adding the item inside the to-do list. So now if you click on remove, it simply removes that ID, and remove the object, filter out the object from here. If you click on the first item, it's removed. If you click on the last item, it's also removed. So now we don't have any item. Okay, so this is how you can create a to-do list using the Redux Toolkit and React Native. So this is a basic example of using Redux Toolkit inside application and create a simple to-do list. We will get into the details. We will get into the details in a separate video, but yeah, this is just for the basic information and for a beginner to understand. This is not for a pro level developer. This is just for a beginner. This is for a beginner to understand basic things about Redux Toolkit and React Native. Basic thing about Redux Toolkit and how to create a to-do list using Redux Toolkit. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.